Hello and welcome to my review of the Dacia Sandero. In particular, we're focusing on this 2013 model, which went on all the way to 2020, but it had a facelift around 2017. Let's see what we think of the drive of the car. We'll get straight in there, waiting for this taxi driver to move. So, the Sandero came out into the UK in 2013. The very earliest examples were on a 62 plate. There was a choice of engines, namely a 1.2 petrol, which you'll find in this car, a 1.5 turbo diesel, which was a K9K unit, also found in cars such as the Nissan Duke, Renault Captur and Clio, as well as other cars. And finally, a 0.9 litre turbo 3-cylinder unit. That was found in most of the Dacia range actually, as well as Clios, Capturs and everything else in between. Me personally, I'd be looking at either a K9K diesel engine or this little 1.2 petrol engine if you're not doing loads of miles. The 0.9 just seemed to be a little bit troublesome. I wasn't a massive fan of it, to be totally honest with you. But this little 1.2 engine, it's been around for years. Yes, there's probably more fuel efficient engines, slightly lower to tax, but it's just I always found it to be a very rugged, dependable engine. I had very little trouble with cars I've bought and sold with, well, no trouble with it, to be totally honest with you. It is run off a timing belt. This particular car did have it booked in for a timing belt, but my mechanic advised me to just say had a genuine Renault timing belt. And normally I like to have the proof there, but I thought at the end of the day, if it's been done, it's been done. The first part of this test drive, we're going to be focusing in the town of Darlington, where I live, just to see how the Sandero copes, because I think, to be honest with you, most Sanderos probably won't really leave towns and cities. They don't get used for motorway journeys. You don't buy a Sandero to be comfortable and to do loads of miles, I guess. This particular example has covered 92,871 miles. It has just 2 previous owners. Always been a local car to the northeast. I think the previous owner was from Sunderland. And looking at the ND number plate, it's always been Sunderland, Durham way. So what do I think so far? So I'll be honest with you, the steering wheel is pretty rubbish really. It's a bit slippy, and what can I say, there's just not a lot to it. It's very, very plain looking, but at the end of the day, this car when new will have cost under £7,000. You can't really blame them for that then, can you? When you do want to put your foot down, it does have a little bit of poke. I'm not saying it's quick, but it can certainly keep up with the traffic. Also, I quite like the gear change as well. I've noticed that although it's quite a high up gear stick, there's not really a lot to it. I'll show you later down here, but it feels very, what's the best way of putting it? It's not notchy, but you can feel it going into the gears. It's quite well dampened, I think would be the word. I think that would be especially good for a first time driver. The brakes aren't too bad either. What else have I noticed? So, I mean, to be fair, in the Sandero there's not really a lot to go wrong, is there? But this is a mid-range model, so most of them, I think, a very basic model, came with black plastic bumpers, no wheel trims, no radio, no aircon, windy windows. I believe that was the Access, that one. This one is one up, which is an ambience, so it comes with a CD radio, which I believe also has the auxiliary and USB. The fan, it doesn't have air conditioning, despite being called an ambience, but I tell you what, if you put it on cold, it's not far off. It's actually quite chilly, to be totally honest with you. All the mirrors are normal, just little manually adjusted front electric windows in this model. expensive. You've got obviously all the lights and everything are manual as well. You do get remote central locking with this model though. And then they also did a top of range model, I believe that was the Laureate, and that one they were actually mainly for 0.9 turbo or 1.5 diesel, but they came with electric windows all around, alloy wheels, and I think they actually came with rear parking sensors as well. I've just noticed on this screen it's come up Bluetooth connection failed. To my knowledge this car didn't have Bluetooth, but we might have to pull over and have a little look. Quite impressed if it does. I'll have to update my advert as well. I'll also have to update because I've put it has 93,000 miles and it only has 92. Anyway, we're heading out of town now. I'm going to be heading towards Worth and Croft just to see how the little Sandero copes once we get it up to speed a little bit, and if we can keep up with the traffic towards the national speed limit, 60 miles per hour, and then we'll pull over somewhere nice and have a little look around, show you some things that I like, some things that I don't like about the Sandero, and things that I feel you guys may be interested in. You did request this video after all. I do appreciate that. Before we do get to the main road, I'd like to explain to you, I know I give you the choice of this or a Citroen C3 walk around video which I went to pick up this morning. Sadly that car's still at PCA. It wasn't so good. There was some major issues with the front suspension which had occurred while the car was in their hands. Me being a good customer of theirs, I won't go too much into it, but let's say they looked after me with it, so everything's all sorted with that now. Okay, I've been a good customer for them and I don't really complain about anything but this. I've made my way to Newcastle and I physically couldn't move the car, let alone drive it 35 miles back to Darlington. The clutch on this isn't it's not bad, it just doesn't have much feel. It can be a little bit jumpy at lower speeds in town traffic. But now we're going to get the little Sandero, see how long it takes, 30 to 60. I mean that's 60 miles an hour. And we're on the tail of this little Audi A3. But yeah, it's got more than enough torque. What more do you want? I'll be honest with you, the 1.4 Corsa SRI that I picked up from Nottingham and did the video of last week, this feels like it's got more torque. I'm not going to lie. Quite impressed with this actually. But yeah, for those of you that don't know, Dacia is actually a Romanian brand. It's been around for quite a few years. They've been making cars, I think even date back to like the 50s and 60s, I do believe. And they had a reputation for making rugged, dependable four-wheel drive cars. This little the Sandero came out, I think it was in the 1990s, as did the Duster, and these virtually were rebadged old shape, old model Renaults. Okay, the Dusters you can actually buy with a Renault badge in the continent. Obviously the Romanians are quite proud of Dacia, it's their main car company. But yes, essentially it is just a rebadged Renault. This particular one, I believe, is the Mark II. Is it a Mark II or Mark III Clio underneath? Which is certainly no bad thing. Not a bad little car, the old model Clios. And we don't get, to be fair, it actually rides the bumps and everything well as well. So yes, it might be Renault parts bin with a slightly older 1.2 engine. You could get that engine in the Clio as well at the back in 2014 when this car was new. But this one was, I think it was 6,995 plus the cost of the metallic paint and the spare wheel and the kick plates. But even so, you're only looking at like £7,500. Dacia are always very generous with the cost. How about here in the UK? So now the basic model Sandero costs roughly £15,000. Obviously that's mainly due to the inflation, and they're not quite as basic as they were back when this early generation Sandero came out. Obviously these were the first Dacias that came to the UK market. Anything earlier would be like classed as an import. But in the just over 10 years that Dacia has been in the UK now, I don't know about you guys, but I think they've built themselves a cracking reputation for making a good quality, sturdy, small car. And the Sandero, or SUV obviously with the Duster as well, and this little Sandero is no different. I think they've got it just right, to be totally honest with you. It drives right, it looks alright, and the cost is certainly right. This one here I've advertised for just over £2,000, with sensible mileage, 2 owners from new, and a full MOT with no advisories. To get it through its test, all I had to do was put 2 tyres on the front, and I also had to put a centre exhaust in. Now the exhaust you have to buy in bits on Dacias, there's no bolts, you have to weld them up together. Luckily my mechanic Jim Bean at JBM Motorsport in Darlington, he's an excellent welder, so he's got it all in place and the exhaust isn't blowing anymore. Final stage of the road test. Let's see what it's like on the country roads. I tell you what, it actually encourages you to drive a bit faster. I know we shouldn't, but national speed limit, you know what, I'm actually quite enjoying this. Don't get me wrong, it's not a Lotus Elise, it's not a Mini, but Sandero just wants to be thrashed about. It loves it. I'm actually really enjoying this. I'll tell you what as well, one thing I did notice is 1.2 petrol engine. It's just insurance group 3E. So if you are a first time driver, or anyone, let's face it, all our insurance costs have gone up. It's gonna, what more could you want than this little Sandero? But don't get me wrong, there's probably better looking cars, fancier cars. Let's face it, the main issue with Dacia is probably the badge snobbery, the image. You don't really have much street cred in the Dacia Sandero, do you? But I tell you what, they're not bad. Really not bad. I'm going to find somewhere nice to pull over so we can have a little look and have a look at a few other features on the Sandero. Alright, I know it's a lovely little road. I'm quite happy to drive my BMW down here sometimes on a summer's evening. It's lovely. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Sandero can't quite compete, but it's not bad. It's not bad. There's no wobble on the steering, the brakes are all straight as well, there's no juddering. There's not excessive road noise. I know there's not a lot of sound deadening on these Dacias because they are built to a budget. Some of the metal, I'll show you, isn't as thick as maybe like it to be. But I don't think the end cap ratings were too bad on these. Let's have a little look anyway. I'm sure there's a lay-by somewhere just down here where we can pull over. Catch up with you soon. Right, first of all I'd like to apologise for the wind noise in advance. So let's have a little look around the Sandero. Obviously just given this car a full valet. It is now fully advertised on my page as well as Facebook Marketplace. I'm also going to do it on Instagram, possibly even Gumtree. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're not the best looking car in the world, but they do the job. It's just a car, isn't it? You don't buy one because you want to you're probably not going to meet your other half in a Dacia Sandero, are you? Pulling up at the lights, but I mean, you wouldn't buy one because you were looking, would you? It's just a car, simple as that. I'm going to have a look at this Bluetooth as well, because it's been flashing up Bluetooth and I didn't know this car had that. If it does, I'm really quite impressed. Got a slightly patterned trim in there. This particular one, it's all very tidy actually, all cleaned up nice. Got all the vinyl on the back of the seats, built to a budget. But I can tell you what, if you've got kids kicking the back of your chair, that's probably quite handy, especially if you've been walking around on the grass and so on, muddy feet. I'd be quite happy with that if I was a parent. You see what I mean about the steering wheel? There isn't really much to it, but it's functional. It is functional. What you do get with a Sandero is a good sized boot. Let me show you. Look at that. I'd go as far as saying that's probably class leading, comparing that to Corsas and Polos, Z3s, that type of thing. Right, what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you some features that I like about the Sandero and some that I don't. We're actually going to start with things that I do like, so if you want to follow me inside, I'll show you the first thing. So this is actually going to be 3 things that I do like about the Sandero. Number 1, as I mentioned before, is the gear change. It's nice and smooth. If I was a first time driver, I'd be really, really grateful for that. Number 2 is you've got the controls for the volume and your phone on there behind the steering wheel. Quite clever. I know Renault is still using that feature now. And finally, just make sure no one's around, the horn. It's on the end of the indicator stalk. Look at that. It's not often you see that these days, is it? Listen to it. It's cute. Number 2, the fan. I tell you what, bearing in mind that doesn't have air conditioning, that is absolutely freezing. We're quite grateful for that on a summer's day. Another one inside, the electric windows. Reminds me of my E46. How could we not mention a practicality? I mean, obviously being sat here, you can see that's my seat position. I sit quite far back. Rear seat passengers in a car this size, I'd be quite happy with that. Cost, how could we not like a 63 plate car with just over 90,000 miles for just £2,000? And finally, it's just ergonomically pleasing. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's built to a budget, but the buttons just, I think they're quite pleasant to the touch. Well done, Dacia. And then finally, we're going to the things that I don't like about the Sandero. Yeah, it's not great, let's face it. That steering wheel, that is absolutely awful. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's cost saving, but that is just too plain. It's horrendous. And that leads me on to something else. Well, we'll just open the boot. I'll do it again. Shut the door. And it's shut again. What's wrong with the button, Dacia? How way? I mean, don't get me wrong, you can pop your key in, but it's just not good enough. I would like to, if I was being picky, I'd like to see that jack a bit more hidden as well, but I'm not, because it's cheap. This all just seems a bit exposed as well. I mean, yes, it's cheap, but it just feels a bit too flimsy for me, especially where you're going to be loading things in and out of the car. The seats too, there's very, very little support from this. I suffer from quite a bad back, and there's just absolutely nothing there. You go around the corner too quick, you feel like you're going to fall off. And finally, that steering wheel again. That is just absolutely appalling. However, the clocks are quite nicely finished. I'm quite impressed with that. Oh, look at that down there. If you look at that button there, some of these cars actually have cruise control. Interesting. I'm guessing that would have to be the Laureate model for that. Finally, let's conclude this short video of the Dacia Sandero. So, couple of questions. The first one, would I buy one? Me personally, no. I like cars too much. I'm a bit of a badge snob. But if someone came to me and said, I've got a couple of £1,000 and I need a good, sturdy, reliable little runabout, I'd say yes. And I'll tell you what, I'd tell them to buy one of these over a Corsa, potentially over a Clio, because let's face it, they're exactly the same car underneath. You get the same engines, and it's got what you need. That's what Dacia's brand model is. It has got what you need. But yeah, it is just the bad snobbery for me. Yes, I'm a bit of a snob, but it's not a bad car at all. To drive reasonably, I prefer to drive the Corsa. There's probably other small cars that prefer these two as well. It's certainly not bad at all. And for the price point, I mean, like I say, this 63 plate, it's yours for £2,000. But £2,000 in my hand, you can buy this car. Nothing wrong with it. 12 months MOT, no advisories. It's not categorised, nothing like that. Yeah, good buy if you ask me. A few little things that I didn't like. Nothing too picky. I was trying to think of things I didn't like, and I was struggling. I had to mention the steering wheel twice. And let's face it, it still does the job. It's just a bit. It looks shocking. Let's face it. All this, it's quite nicely set out. All your vents, your climate, your windows. Take some getting used to, but the radio, I'd like to think as well for older people. Some of these fancy cars with the big touch screens, you think of the Clios at this age, them touch screens, if you put my nana in this car, she probably wouldn't know where to start. But in this, she'd turn it on, she'd put it onto BBC Radio 2, she'd probably turn the volume up so she could hear it, and when she was finished, she'd turn it off. Simple as that. Why should it be so complicated? Not everyone wants a fancy, complicated car. So if you're after a car that does the job, nice and reliable, good, rugged, sturdy, drives alright, fairly comfortable. You don't get me wrong, the seats aren't the most supportive, but look no further to Sandero. I mean, let's face it, think of a Clio, same age, 63 plate, 90k on the clock, 2 owners from new, just past an MOT, being serviced, no advisories. I think you'd be looking at 4.5. So you're looking at a couple of £1,000. In the current climate, when money's tight, all the bills have gone up, insurance has gone up. This is Group 3E. There's another one. Hey! I'd be quite happy with the Sandero. Nothing wrong with it at all. I'd be really, really happy with that. Don't get me wrong, it's no slouch. The Leon FR behind's wondering what I'm doing, but you know, you can't keep up, can it? But no, I'm actually really impressed with it. So, yeah. If you've got a fairly small budget and you need a good, reliable second-hand car, or new cars, well, the new ones, I've drove them before, they actually drive alright. Buy a Sandero. Simple as that. Simple as that. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video review on the Sandero. If I'm boring, let me know. I have tried my best. Maybe give me some tips and ideas for next time as to why you would, what you would like to see more. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed it. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to my channel. The main thing I do is buy and sell used cars. There's plenty of you walk-arounds on these cars I do purchase. I tend to focus on cars under the £3,000 mark. But who knows, as we sell a few more, might be able to flip some motors and work our way up. I'll catch up with you all shortly. Take care now. Bye bye.